Hello, 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 hello. How are you out there today? I'm Cortez Ransom, the host of the C Note, and this is season 2, episode 8. The C Note is where we keep it real, where the real recognize real. We keep it 100. And the real recognize real, and we also see you fake asses out there too. Waiting for my very special guest tonight, Mr. Sirginho Williams. He is an interior designer, a flight attendant, a new author. Hey, how are you? He has written a book entitled A Generation of Trauma. I'm waiting for him to join me on screen right now so we can start talking about some of the things that he has done in life. Um, I just communicated with him, so he should be coming on this screen any second now. I see you out there, Marcus. How are you? I don't know what's taking him so long. He should have been ready right there. But anyway, what's going on with you, Marcus? You might as well talk to me while I'm waiting for him to come on. Yeah. I see him right there. Hey. Yes. Let's get this thing cracking. Hey, what's up? How
Hey,
are you?
I'm all right.
I'm good. I'm hanging in there. You know me. So we have here Mr. Sergino Williams. He hails originally from Jamaica. He came to the States at the age of 10 or 11, correct? Was it 10 or 11?
10.
Or 10 years old. And he is an interior designer, a flight attendant, a new author of a great book entitled A Generation of Trauma. We're not going to get into the book right away. We're going to build up to that moment with the book. But I first want to talk to you about the differences in Jamaica versus America. You know, how was it growing up in Jamaica to age 10, just with school and everything, versus being here, the culture shock coming to America and the schools here in America?
Growing up in Jamaica is different. I think, Jamaica is a tropical island. The weather is even different there. But growing up for me, I remember everything being so big, like, big buildings
Hmm.
and big streets, um, even people, So growing up it was great. We grew up in a small town in it's Ocho Rios, Jamaica.
Okay.
I
Hmm.
was actually born in St. Anne's Bay Hospital, which is the parish
Okay.
St. Anne in
Hmm. Yeah.
Steer. So, growing up in Jamaica was different for me. It was like, carefree. It was island life. It was carefree. I mean, everything is carefree in the islands, but uh, just leaving Jamaica at the age of 9 years old or 10. I think I was 10 at the time, but it was a culture shock for me coming to the United States. And we lived in New York. So coming to New York was like, wow, all these buildings.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's a huge difference.
okay,
Right.
what just happened? It
Hmm.
was just like coming into terms with being in a different country, different people, a different accent, because, Jamaicans, we have a
Right.
dialect, we have a
Hmm.
Patois dialect.
Yeah.
So coming to this country was like it was a culture shock for me.
Okay. So I want to ask you about the teachers there and the attitude of the teachers there versus the attitude that you found from teachers here. Was there any difference between those two as far as how they went about teaching, how they interacted with children? Well,
Well, teaching in Jamaica is different. Back then it was more stricter. The teachers had the permission from the parents and the government to, like, they actually
the discipline.
discipline, like beat you
Okay.
with a belt. So they don't do that right now, but back then it was a different type of discipline.
Well, they used to have uh, that in black neighborhoods as far as like neighbors back way back decades ago in black neighborhoods. It was like a village, you know. So if you did something wrong, if your mom wasn't there to discipline you, the neighbor could discipline you. Whereas today, a lot of children just run amok. And now I'm not advocating for just beating your children for no reason, of
Right.
course, but some of these children nowadays are out of hand. They need some. Yeah, you can talk to some children, but some children need a little. But I'm not advocating for just beating somebody just to be
Yeah.
beating them.
I think.
But you know,
Oh, I think if you ask me, I think if it was more discipline going on, children would be a little bit different than they are now. They'll be more
Mhm.
structured and have more respect and manners for anybody, just anybody that's older. So yeah.
Right, right. Well, that reminds me somewhat of the title of your book, of how people misbehave and stuff like that, and how we handle how they misbehave is passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah.
Nowadays, of course, the authorities say, you can't touch your children now. You can't discipline them now, or they're ready to come get them and lock you up and stuff like that,
Right.
which has caused even more problems in the black community. You know what I mean? So because you can't discipline your children, they talk back to you and whatever else. So it makes it very difficult to rein them in. Not that you have to control your children all their lives. Of course, they have to have minds of
Right.
their own,
Yes.
but they still should have respect. And a lot of these children nowadays do not have respect for their parents or their elders or whatever. And some of that has to do with the fact that some of these children were raised by children too. But
Right.
also you got to look at the fact that even like way, way, way back in the day, like in our great grandparents' day or whatever, or great great grandparents' day, back then people were getting married at what,
But very
like
young, like 13, 14.
13, 14 years old, and
Yeah.
they handle things differently. So, but mindsets have changed. There's something in the air with all that kind of stuff. You've done a whole lot in your life. Not just which is mentioned. The main things was interior designer and flight attendant, which you're currently doing now. But you also were told at a young age that you had a learning disability, as they
Yes.
put it. Okay. Um, so they tried to put you in a little box, and you proved them wrong, because you got to a point where you started to teach children to work with you.
Yes.
And um, tell me about your first time and how did you get into that position?
Well, I was classified as learning disabled when I was much younger, and then when I got to, I think, seventh or eighth grade, I was put in special education, and it so happened that I was given a test, a literacy test, to see how was I academically, and I passed
Mm-hmm.
the test, and it was like, you know they classified me as being learn disabled, but really it was just that I needed things to be explained to me because of the accent and all coming
Okay.
from different countries. When I first came to
Mm-hmm.
America, it was like everything was going so fast. Like people were talking fast, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really understand what was going on, and that's why I think they classified me as that. But once I took the
Yeah.
test, just needed to be explained things very slowly, and that
Well,
time I didn't speak
you know,
really good, no. And then
understand.
later on, it was like after I graduated college, it was like I told myself that I was going to help children with disabilities. I worked with kindergarten and preschool kids as a teacher, and I did that
Mm-hmm.
for about 5 years with Prince William County Schools in Virginia, and it was very rewarding for me because it was like getting to know these kids and trying to figure out what it is that made them, you know, move, what is
Right.
that made them, how could they learn, like you have to figure out what it is that to make them learn,
Mm-hmm.
because some of them were autistic, learning disability,
Right.
um, all different types of disabilities. So
I
it was
understand that
great.
because I myself, I have a disability, which people don't. know about because all disabilities are not visible to the naked eye, so to speak. Um, I've talked about this before. I suffered a brain injury, a severe brain injury. I wasn't born with it. It happened when I was a child. But I was like a toddler. I didn't know about it. My mom didn't tell me about it because she didn't want me to be self-conscious about it. I didn't actually find out about it until I was like in the beginning of my 20s when I suffered a seizure because of that brain injury. Um, but she was right not to tell me when I was growing up because it would have made me self-conscious because when I did find out about it, I became very self-conscious about it. You
Sure.
know, um, so it affects me in different ways, but I don't let it stop me. Um, you know, I've been told by doctors since I've been grown that I wouldn't be able to achieve this and achieve that because of the brain injury. Because according to them, after having a CAT scan done and an MRI done, according to them, half of my brain is damaged. And they told me that I wouldn't be able to do this and do that. But of course, I don't let that stop me, and that's why I'm here today doing what I'm doing. Um, I'm not naturally a very talkative person. I'm normally a quiet, laid back person. During the pandemic, I started this podcast to make myself become more talkative to
That's,
people and easier. People would assume that I talk easy to people because I'm in the arts. I'm an actor and a singer and a screenwriter and all that. And today, that's why I'm here, able to say that I'm an award-winning independent filmmaker because I didn't let what the doctors say to me stop me. Or because if I had listened to what they said, I wouldn't be doing anything right now because they told me I wouldn't be able to do anything. So I'm happy that you um, kept going and didn't let what they say to you stop. You also got to a point where you worked at the White House, right?
yeah, I
And, and which administration was that
a
under?
lot of people don't know that I worked in operations for years. I worked in
Mm-hmm.
operations for about 18 years.
During which during whose administration?
This was the Obama administration.
Okay.
So I went back to like it was back in 2011, and I didn't know what the interview was for because I was like, okay, operations manager. I'm just applying for a regular job.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to the interview, after talking to at the time the interview that interviewed me, he said the position is for uh, it's a janitorial supervisor position at the White House, and I said, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I couldn't believe, yeah, I
Right.
couldn't believe. But at the time when I did apply, it took about a few months for the clearance to go through and everything. But when I arrived, it was like, wow. We had
Mm-hmm.
the executive office as well as the White House that we cleaned both buildings, and we actually ran the operation of the facilities as well as everything that came into that building. It would
Right.
go through us. But it
Did you
was an
ever?
opportunity for me, great opportunity.
I can imagine a wonderful opportunity. Did you ever get to actually meet President Obama
I
or First
saw them
Lady
go in the
Michelle?
hallway, like I seen them physically, but as well as to just come up to them and talk to them, no.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Joe Biden more, and I
Okay.
was in charge of his office. When the cleaning got
Mm-hmm.
done, and because at that time, like most of the products, I mean, most of the items in the room were like 100 years old, so you have to clean them with like a rag and water.
Right.
Nothing to touch it. So at that time, I
Okay.
Joe Biden corresponded with him a few times in the hallway. It's
Mm-hmm.
a very tall, skinny man. You know,
If he
that there,
he
yeah, you
doesn't look that
right.
tall.
And he's like on TV,
How tall is
he's
he?
6'2",
About
like,
really, he doesn't look that
but
tall. Okay.
TV puts a lot of weight on it, so you know how
Right.
that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to talk to you a little bit about your interior design. So when you are hired to do something, how do you go? What is your approach on decorating? When you look at a room, what makes you say this would go in here or it should be done like this? Do you bring some of your style from back home, although you grew up mainly in America because you came here when you were 10, but you still go back to Jamaica.
Yeah, we go.
So
Yeah,
do you incorporate any styles from Jamaica in your decorating? Or it just depends on the
it
person that you're
it
working with?
depends on the person because for me, it's like I talked about in the book. This is a God-given talent.
Mm-hmm.
Every first generation of the women in my family have this talent, and I'm the only
Okay.
guy
Only male.
last
Right.
60 years or 70 years, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a God-given talent. You have to be able to, what I do is assess the client to see what their style is. And by them just
Right.
talking about it and talking about what elements they like or what, you know, textures, color, I know how to
Mm-hmm.
get all that information and put it into use. Yeah. So
Okay. So how long did you do that? You're still doing
I'm
it currently,
still doing
right?
I wrote about it in the book too. I took a course of interior design when I was in high school. And mind you, usually nobody does that because in high school you're thinking about, you know, graduating, going to
Right.
school
Mm-hmm.
and trying to, you know, get all A's. But I did that in high school at the time, you know, but I still do it now. I do small scale stuff. And if I have friends and family that need my help with things, I help them out. So
You help them out or you charge them a little
I
something.
charge them. You should.
I know.
Business is business,
Right.
right?
Business is business. No favors for family,
No,
huh? Okay, it depends on who it is. It
yeah,
depends on who it is.
you
I'm
know,
not I'm not gonna charge mom
no, I'm not going to,
or make
no.
my big sisters and all that. No, I'm not gonna do that, you know. And certain cousins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to start to get into the book,
Okay.
right? Um, it's called A Generation of Trauma, which we all can relate to that title because most of us have been through trauma in our lives. But we all deal with it differently. Okay. So, um, how long had it been on your mind to write a book about it? What inspired you to write a book
Right.
about it? Um,
It was definitely the pandemic. I was home and I was
okay.
trying to figure out, you know, occupy my time, find something to do. You know, I would decorate my house and change it every 2 weeks. That's just me.
Mm-hmm.
But the pandemic started when I just was thinking about certain things, talking to my family, and certain things that keeps going from generation to generation to generation. And I'm just like, well, you know, certain things don't make sense, you know,
Mm-hmm.
especially, um, you know, Black culture. It's like we have not nobody to blame but, you know, the situation that we've been in with slavery. I mean, we've
Mm-hmm.
basically been in slavery for a long time. We don't have generational wealth. We don't have anything to pass down to our children when they die. And it's like I've
Right.
seen things happen in my family, whereas you work, you know, they work paycheck to paycheck, but wasn't really saving, didn't really have any 401k or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
retirement, or especially when a family member died, where's the life insurance? Things like that was really bothering me at the time, and that's what drove me to wrote the book. A lot of things I saw in my family that the last generation, the Gen Z, and also the millennium, like me and my sister, we've kind of like broke that curse, or whatever you want to call it, that gap that was really slowing us down, and it really made it very hard for us to kind of, um, you know, live, you know. So
Well, yeah, somebody in the family has to take that step to end those generational curses. And like you said, a lot of what our people deal with did come from things that happened in slavery. People will say that, well, that happened a long time ago, but no, that stuff is still going on to this day. They still target black people to this day with police brutality and other kinds of things. You know, because if they had left us alone, because there were a lot of successful black towns in this country, a lot of successful black towns, and they all got destroyed. They all got destroyed by
mhm.
Caucasians who were
Yeah.
jealous and hateful. If they had left those places alone, those black towns alone to thrive, the black community would be in a very different place today for the better. But they didn't leave us alone, you know, to keep going because some of them were jealous. I know an older man from the theater community who was a child when this happened, and he said he can remember hearing that white folks said, I can't believe those N words are living better than us, right? So some of them were mad because black folks were thriving amongst themselves as a people, and didn't need them. They had everything. They had their own hospitals, their own bus company, you know, and, and not just some little rinky dink bus company either, like a 500 fleet bus company. and stuff like that. And this, in some of these towns, this was before what happened with Rosa Parks, right?
Right.
Okay, this is before they didn't have to worry about getting up out of their seat for a Caucasian because they had their own, you know, and white folks came in and destroyed it. Like on Black Wall Street, black folks were doing so well that white folks were coming to black people for loans, and black people loaned them money, but they couldn't stand black people having that type of independence, so they shut it down. You know, that's the reason why integration was allowed, not because they wanted to be fair. They allowed integration to, you know, slow down the progress that black people were making amongst ourselves. And so here we are today. We think we need them because they've convinced us that we need them.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like they've convinced us that we're the minority when we're really not. There are black people all across this country, all across the world, rather, all across the world. We really outnumber them if we were to come together. And that's why I'm all about working on the division amongst our own people, because we need to come together because there's power amongst us. You know, your brother born in Jamaica, and you know, I just found out like a couple of years ago that I actually have, you know, some Caribbean roots in Barbados. But you know, I'm about bringing all black people together, no matter where we're born in the world. We're still brothers and sisters, and we could do a lot if we thought like that. You know what I mean?
I agree.
So in your book, you have you want to say something about that?
No.
Okay.
No.
So
Yeah, you told me this too, but when we were I think we were out at the bar one night. You told me
yeah,
about this. No, oh, I didn't know. That's really cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, I just found out about that a couple of years ago, and also found out about some of my ties in Africa. You know, different countries in the continent of Africa that I have ties to.
Nice.
Ghana, you know, Ghana and Nigeria and Cameroon
Mm-hmm.
and Mali. Yeah, and some other places there as well. But in your book, you talk about your family, knowing both grandparents from both sides, all you know, four grandparents and all that, and the differences in the grandmothers and the grandfathers and all.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, about your family dynamic and all, and also your relationship. Well, we'll wait for that. Go ahead and talk about
Well,
your.
my family dynamics is, you know, I spoke about my grandmother. My grandmother has 6 kids, and you know, she working so hard and being a single parent. And back then, single parents went through different challenges, not the
Yeah.
challenges that we have today, but they went through different challenges. And I wrote about her and about just dedicating the book to her. She and my great grandmother, who were just like really strong, hardworking women that kind of, you know, gave me the passion and, you know, the zeal to be able to write this book. And not only that, but I just see how we're just hard workers. You know, we're just really smart people. You know, we want
Mhm.
to, you know, I spoke about my grandmother. She actually didn't go to school, you know, but she
Right.
was very smart in, you know, knowing how to, you know,
Hmm.
handle money and just being able to take care of 6 kids, you know. And whereas my
Right.
dad of the family, that's something completely different. He has 10 brothers and sisters. You know, his mom and dad went to school. You know, all his brothers and sisters went to school. So he kind of came from a family like, you know, that had money. You know, but my
And
grandmother,
where was he at? Where was he at in that lineup of 10?
I think he was number three.
Okay.
Number three. So,
Okay.
you know, spoke about that in the book and about how he grew up too and his challenges of his parents going to the United Kingdom and leaving him with
Hmm.
his brothers and sisters with his grandparents. So, you know, it just, and I want to touch on this too, is that, you know, the way how they grew up, it's just typical how Caribbean parents raise their children. And
Hmm.
that's not generational trauma too, because it's like communication and certain things weren't talked about in those days. You weren't didn't have those kind of conversations, like
That's
conversations about.
not that's not just in the Caribbean. That in black families in America as well. With communication sometimes is very lacking. Yeah. And some black families, not all.
Right.
Yeah.
But
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, so they, you know, I just wrote about that in the book and about, you know, you know, they went through their challenges. And I think my parents, if they had better communication, I think things would be a lot better with them.
Hmm.
They would have been able to withstand their marriage and also be able to, you know, get more things done, you know, because I wrote about the challenges of my mom and dad. You know, my dad just going off and doing his own thing. And it's like, breadwinner of the family is supposed to really sit down and discuss these things with his wife before he does certain things.
Hmm.
So the challenges that they went back and forth with each other, I wrote about in the book too. So it's
Yeah.
just something, yeah.
Yeah, I read that, their challenges and him going off and doing his thing and how it affected her, and she eventually stood up and was like, she's not going to deal with this anymore, right? So how did it affect you watching that turmoil back and forth?
I think, you know, with my mom, she started to develop chronic depression and anxiety.
Mhm.
And that's what drove her to, you know, leave Jamaica. The doctor told her it would be a good thing to be able to leave the country
Right.
and go to the country, you know, to kind of get better. Because in those
Hmm.
days, I think mental health, it wasn't really a big thing back then. It
Hmm.
was like, it was looked down upon. Like if you had a mental health situation,
Right.
boo, boo you know? It's like you're in a big, you're in a,
Yeah, well, people will say you're crazy or whatever if you, yeah.
so it's like for me it was I saw her challenges and you know I just moving to that's why we moved to this country actually, but for me it was like seeing her go through all this. It I felt really sorry for my mom, you know, and I would console her. And I was very smart at that age, being so small and seeing all the things that were going on
Hmm.
around me. I was very smart. I knew what was going on because you
Right.
know they always say children don't know anything.
No, a lot of children do
They know.
know what's going on. Yeah.
And my
Hmm.
mom said to my dad at one time, she was like, "Why are you doing this? Don't you see that the children know what's going on?" Oh, and he would be like, "Oh, they're young. They don't know what's going on," you know, stuff like that.
Right.
So it was like, um, at that time, it was like that's also where the interior design comes from because at an early age, I remember my mom redecorating the room every 2 to 3 weeks, and that's how I started to
Wow. Okay.
passion of just
Every 2 to 3 weeks, you change the room.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
She would change 2 to 3 weeks.
Right.
So it kind of like that passion came from her instilling that into me at a very young age.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. So, your relationship with your dad, that's kind of,
Well,
well, growing up, it was kind of,
we do now, but back then it was like, you know, I think for my dad, he just thought that we were just young kids and we don't understand too much. And,
hmm
you know, he came from an old school way of being quiet and reserved because that's what
right.
family was. As I wrote about his dad too. His dad was a very quiet man, so it's like he didn't
Hmm.
get into too much mix up that was going on around the place and around the village, you know. And
Right.
I think that's where my dad gets it from too. His dad, you know.
Hmm.
So now we have a really good relationship. We talk every day, and you know, it's like nothing ever happened, you know. So
Okay. So, how did was he always okay with your orientation or
I don't think any parent is okay with
being stranger than loving? Yeah.
yeah, with gender loving people. No parent is okay with it,
Mhm.
but I think he took it better than my mom did because I
Oh,
remember telling
wow. Okay. Okay.
I remember telling my mom in Florida when years ago when I was in Florida, I told my mom about me, and she didn't take it so well. But he knew long time ago, but he didn't really give me a hard time, you know. Um,
Hmm. See, you
and
normally you normally don't hear that. I mean, I know it happens, but you don't normally hear about a black father not giving his son a hard time about being stranger than loving. So go ahead, would you please finish that?
he didn't really give me a hard time because I remember when my mom moved to Florida and you know at that time I was partying a lot and it was
Hmm.
like I'd have house parties and stuff and my dad was still there, you know, because
Yeah.
my we had a two-story house. My dad was on the first floor and I was upstairs, so it's like he always saw what was going on and he was like he never really judged me for it. He met the first person I've ever dated at the time and
Hmm.
you know, he just for my dad, it was like, how could he support me? I think, you
Mm-hmm.
know, without even saying any words,
Wow.
I think for me, it was like spending time with me,
Mm-hmm.
or he'll invite me to come over and say, I need you to help me move out of
Right.
my apartment. So I remember me and my friend, the guy I was at that time, we moved him out of his apartment to another apartment. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, he cooked that night and he talked to us. And it's like, I think for my family, if you don't throw it in their face and talk about it, it's okay.
Right.
And they love me the same,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't want that. They don't want to see certain things, you
Right.
know, in their, so
I know
yeah.
what you mean. All the well, they don't want all the loud, flamboyant
No,
stuff, and I mean, they probably don't want to see all that, even if their child is heterosexual. Even if you're heterosexual, your parents don't want to see you tonguing each other down in front of them like that
right.
either, right? It's a matter of respect. It's a time and place for everything,
Yes.
exactly. So I totally understand that because I'm a laid back person too, and I don't like all that over the top stuff all the time either. It gets to be a bit much. You know what I mean? So I'm really happy to hear that your father was there and accepted you from the beginning, which is very rare to hear that. There's this thing about people want to call the black community like the most homophobic, you know, and they want to act like Caucasians are not homophobic. But my thing is, where do you think a lot of black people got that from? And they don't even realize it because people talk about the black church this, the black church that. Well, I can remember, as a child, seeing stories on television and stuff with these white pastors talking about homosexuals and talking about burning homosexuals alive. Even now today, you hear some white people say, some white so-called heterosexuals talk about burning homosexuals alive and all that, but somehow they want to keep billing black people as being the most homophobic, which is not true. And then the ones that are, a lot of that stems from different things. Like it happened in Jamaica, even more than it happened in America, but it happened in America too, like during slavery. People talk about black women being raped during slavery, but black men and black little girls and boys were also raped during slavery as well. Black men were raped in front of their women and their children to humiliate them, especially the black men who wanted to fight back to break their spirit. A lot of the so-called homophobia in the black community comes from that history and stuff, and also misinterpretations in the Bible as well, because the Bible was rewritten several times over, and there's different things in that Bible, contradictions, because there's even scripture in that Bible that condones slavery, right? There's scripture in that Bible that condones slavery and actually says, you know, obey your master even when they beat you and stuff like that. There are scriptures in that Bible that actually say that. So that's why I know God for myself. I don't just go by what's in that book.
Right.
I I have a personal relationship with that spirit, that energy, that's called God.
You know,
Did you want to?
this I have to say this because you know the Bible is a really touchy subject, and
Mm-hmm.
me it's like, I've grown up in the church. I grew up, as I said in the book, I've grown up to be a Jehovah's
Mm-hmm.
Witness. But I just say that the Bible is a touchy subject, and it's like
I understand.
you know it's a lot. It's a lot. You
Oh,
know.
yes, I know. I know it's a lot, and it's.
Comes down to that, I'm like, I usually just back away from the conversation, even though sometimes I'll fight my battles when it comes down to it. But
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
is, yeah, it is very touchy.
I understand. I mean, a lot of people have beating themselves up over stuff there in that book, and um have taken their lives because of stuff that's in that book, and you know so I know it's a very touchy thing to talk about. You also touch on in the book some of your relationship situations, which I know is also very traumatic. People, when they talk about domestic violence or relationships, they mainly just focus on, a man beating on a woman. But even in the heterosexual dynamic, you have cases where the man is getting abused by his wife or his girlfriend. Of course,
Yes.
in those situations, a lot of men don't want to talk about it because they get teased. They're looked at as being weak because they
Right.
got a woman beating them up. And it's not because necessarily that he can't beat her. It's because he was raised not to hit a woman or whatever, and he don't want to do that. And also, not all women are soft and delicate either. There's some rough women out here that like to fight like men, and sometimes they get these men who are laid back and quiet and more reserved, and they try to control them. But these men who are abused by their women, they don't, they don't feel comfortable telling their buddies about it because a lot of their buddies are going to laugh at them and taunt them and talk about them, so they hold that in. And nobody really does anything on that subject. But
Right.
also, and the same in a loving situation, you have abuse between two men. You have abuse between lesbian couples. You have women who beat on women and stuff like that. But in your situation, you're someone who didn't stick around in that situation.
I I wrote about chapter 5 actually is Love is Blind.
Mm-hmm.
And I I when I met the person at the time, it was love at first sight. I really fell in love with this person, and you know, I was with them for about a year before I think we got married, and it was like we had have any problems or anything. I did. He did have you know issue with substance abuse that you know was something that he was working on, and I at the time
So
didn't
he
really
didn't
I didn't
he
judge him.
didn't
I
he didn't show he didn't show any signs of being physically abusive
no
until later, right?
till later. It was we had got married, and it was like a week after that he was missing, and I was like, well, where is he? His family and I, we tried to look for him, we couldn't find him
Mm-hmm.
nowhere. um and then I just came to the realization that after spending all this money on this wedding and this nice wedding, that I went down the aisle and I was like, okay, I have all hopes of this working out, and I'm gonna see how long it's gonna work out for. But things took a drastic, turn. It's like I had to get myself away from this person. It was like the substance abuse. I'm like, well, you're not gonna get any better. Let me just take myself away from this situation. When he saw that I was about to leave him, a morning came by when I was, trying to take him to work, and we got into a physical altercation. And I was like, okay, no, you have one time to put your hands on me, and then
Right.
that's it. It's just over. For me, it's just over. I just
Mm-hmm.
stepped away from the situation, and I said, no, I have to. And we tried to
Yeah.
reconcile. I ended up filing for divorce a year later. So,
Yeah.
no.
I'm happy to hear you say you didn't stick around for that and stay in it. I was a long time ago. I was in a relationship with someone who turned out to try to be abusive. Of
Mhm.
course, when we first met, they came off, like Prince Charming, whatever, and very doting and attentive. And then later on, once they knew that my feelings were involved, they started to let this psychotic stuff show, like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, switching back and forth and stuff like that. And then he got to a point where he tried to swing on me, but it never connected, right? I ain't let him hit me. He ain't gonna hit me. He pushed me one time, and I fell backwards, into the nightstand. But that was the gist of it. But I got out of that. You know, he was also one of these people who would tell you, if I can't have, he would tell me, if I can't have you, nobody is,
Yeah.
right? So I got away from that successfully, thank God, because the person that he was seeing a few years after me is not so lucky. They're no longer here.
Oh wow.
He killed the person that he was seeing after me. Uh, he I was told that he cut the dude's throat,
Mm.
right? So I'm thankful to God, to the ancestors or whatever, that gave me the sense enough to get away from that person. And I'm not going to put up with anybody putting their hands on me either. I don't roll like that. So I want people out there who may see this to understand and need to get away from that, Don't put up with that. You know what I'm saying? No matter what your sexual orientation, don't put up with somebody putting their hands on you. And even now today, I'm very careful about who I talk to. Um, and like the first sign that somebody may be a little off, and I know they know how to hide it well, but the first time I might see a sign of somebody being a little off, I'm out of there. I don't play with that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to ever be in that situation again. I was blessed to get away from that situation before.
And
So,
in
mm,
but
mm,
look, all have perceptive powers.
mm,
It's like if we can see good and bad, and it's like if you see something that's not right, it's just like a warning bell going off in your head, like bing bing bing. To get away from certain situations, and it's like for me, it was like okay, that warning bell came on loud and clear. It was time for me to get away from that situation. I wasn't gonna
mm,
delve into that, and I just saw my mother, and I was like, mm-mm, I don't have any kids, so why should I
right.
stay in a situation? And even though I love the person so much, I was not thought to tolerate certain behaviors. No,
Hmm.
no.
You never should put up with that. You don't have any children, but you have a godson. So.
I have two godsons. Yeah, now I
Oh,
do.
you have
Yeah.
two godsons. I know you. And now you have two. When was the last one born? I know about the other one.
Yeah, yeah. So Devon, it's really with Jamaica we say Devon because it's
Hmm.
Devon. But you
Okay.
guys say Devon, but Jamaica is Devon. But he was
Okay.
born in 2021. And I
Hmm.
think Caesar was born in 2000. So
Okay.
one was born August, one was September. So they're back to back, but different years. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I remember the first one. I remember seeing you hold him in pictures and stuff like that.
yeah, they're getting big.
So do
Big.
you eventually, huh?
Yeah, they're getting big. They're like what, 3 or 4? No,
Hmm.
I think one is 3 and one is 2. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. So do you eventually want children of your own or?
I don't know, but if I do meet someone, like the desire
Mhm.
is there, because I think we all have that desire to procreate. We do.
Right.
um,
Hmm.
to be with somebody, monogamy is it's in all of us. So I think that's what I want. I would like to meet somebody one day and they would like to go that route. Sure.
Yeah. I'm happy you said that because a lot of folks seem to think that same gender loving brothers and sisters don't want to procreate and carry on the race and stuff like that. They also all assume, well, not all, but some of them assume that we're all chasing after Caucasians, which we're not all doing. For
No.
me personally, I'm not interested in the Caucasian. So nothing against them, but that's not my thing. If it ain't black, send it back for me. So it got to be black for me. I'm just sorry.
Gotcha.
That's how I feel about it. You know, that's definitely how I feel about it. So with your book, um, once it was completed, how did you feel? Did you feel a sense of release, a sense of pride, or both?
Yeah, I felt a sense of both because it was like I felt a sense of release, but also I didn't want to put myself out there like that. I was like, I'm putting a
Hmm.
lot into this book. I put out my
Yeah.
business here. Yes, I did.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's putting a lot out there. But I just wanted to be able to help that one teenager or that one kid that's coming from a different country
Hmm.
to know it's okay to adapt to your new surroundings. But
Hmm.
also, it's like most of it, it's everything wrapped in one with this book: the
Right.
generational trauma, generation of what I went through with my family, and how it's,
Hmm.
but also like me growing up in Jamaica, coming from Jamaica to this country and going through the
Hmm.
challenges and being able to professionally, go through all these different phases of my career. And I've had a
Right.
really great career,
Hmm.
and to not being a flight attendant, I think it's just a coming to America story like the Eddie Murphy movie. But this
Hmm.
one is kind of different because it's just having to do
Right.
with more of the Caribbean culture and where I grew up and, my family, and about, there's a chapter in there about money management too, and about,
Yeah. Hmm.
what I saw my family doing and what eventually changed with my mother when she retired. I
Hmm.
definitely made sure that she was going to retire okay, and
Hmm.
not Sometimes we settle for different things and we don't have to do that. You know,
Right.
this country has so many resources that we have at our fingertips as, you know, colored folks, Black people. We can use those resources and make sure that we are successful in anything we do. Take advantage of what is out there and be able to, you know, have a
Well, a lot of us don't know about those resources, but they try to keep it hidden from us. So you gotta be
yes,
aware and go out there and check things out. And I know you were talking about children coming from another country to here, but I also know that there are elements in that book that children, particularly Black children from anywhere they're born, even if they were born and raised in America, there are things in that book that they will identify with as well.
yes, they will identify with, you know, just and I always say this too. It's like trauma. Everybody suffers from trauma. Like if it's something that's traumatic that happened to us, where do we get help? And
Right.
you know, mom being sick, you know, it's okay to get help. It's okay to get counseling. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to seek that, you know, person that is something is going on. Tell them.
Right.
When I was growing up, I remember there's times where my sister and I could have been sexually, you know, molested or something,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So it was things that I saw in myself that told me that, listen, this is not right or that is not right. But my sister was always around me, so there are times when things
Mm-hmm.
could have happened. It didn't happen, you know. And that time, my mom wasn't in Jamaica. She had migrated to the United States a year before we did. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's times when things could have happened. That's why you use your judgment. As you know, children should always use a judgment to figure
Right.
out, is this right, is this wrong? And I've seen a lot of things with a lot of people too. A lot of people I've gotten has been molested, didn't know what was going on with them, and they blame themselves still to this day. And that's why I say it's very
Right.
important to get that
So,
help.
uh, how old were you when that happened?
We were 9, 10, she was 8, well, she was 7, and I was 9 or 10, maybe
Sure.
4 years apart. Yeah, we're 4 years
She,
apart.
so,
She's 8.
so, so you both were molested.
No, I didn't say that. I said there was
Okay.
times it could have been,
Oh,
it could have
it could
happened.
have been. Oh, but it did not happen
It
to you.
didn't happen to us. You know,
Okay.
like
Okay.
my,
Okay. Well,
I
cool.
could I was very smart back then. I could see when if things were not right or something
Mm-hmm.
was right. You know, I was very smart back then to know what's right from what's wrong.
Right. Right.
Knew certain things were not right, so it could have happened to us, but it didn't happen to us. I was always there with my sister, and you know, definitely protected her. You know,
Okay. Well, I'm glad you said that it did not happen to you because a lot of people will say that the reason that people who are homosexual or whatever is because of abuse because there's a large percentage of sexually loving males, Black men, who did experience that.
right,
So people
yeah,
people will take that and say that's the reason why they're that way.
right.
But in your case, it never happened to you. And your father was in your life and all that. Um,
I had
so,
uncles, aunts around me. You know, my family is a big family,
mhm,
both sides. But I just think for me, but I've always known I was different,
mhm.
so I just had to go along with that and just like live my life like, you know, knowing that yeah, I am different, and you know,
And you accepted it
I accepted it.
at an early age.
Yeah.
At an early age, you never fought with it.
Um, did I fight with it? I think coming to this country, I fought with it
Hmm.
because when I wrote in the book too. I miss my mom so much that I would get dressed up in her clothes and just like go outside and
Hmm.
walk around. You know, my family used to always laugh at that because they thought it was funny, and I'm being funny, or I'm
Hmm.
being a clown, or you know, they just thought it was a
Hmm.
joke.
Okay.
But then with me just expressing myself that I miss my mom and I wanted her to be around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand. I just thought it was important to put that out there, about the fact that, and that's why I asked that did you ever fight with it? Because some people do fight with it, because of what we're raised to believe, um, again, what's in the Bible and all that, in Leviticus and all. Um, so, I went through praying, praying that it would go away. I prayed that it would go away, that my feelings would go away, and that I would become heterosexual. I even at one point went to one of those support groups for trying to become delivered from my sexual
Right.
orientation. One of those, it was actually a 12-step program, So I did fight it and pray that it would go away. But, I eventually accepted myself, because I realized that it wasn't God that had an issue with me, that it was other people who had an issue with me because of their misunderstandings of whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, um, I like what you had to say about
And
that.
I think
Definitely.
for me too, it was like, okay, I had headaches. And the
Mm-hmm.
only way to stop these headaches was for me to just come into terms with who I was.
Mm-hmm.
I had really bad headaches. Sometimes they were migraines. And I'm just like, okay, for me to live and be okay with this and to accept it, I had to stop so I can stop
Mm-hmm.
thinking negatively about myself. But also I had to embrace it at the time. And when I wrote about in the book when I met my best friend, um, and it was like a liberation of me. It's like I felt liberated. I felt like I knew, like you've been
Mm-hmm.
washed clean or you've been
Right.
baptized. I had to give up certain things about myself to be able to live and be happy being just who Gino is.
Right. You have to do that or you'll drive yourself crazy. That's
Yes,
why
yes.
some people have taken their lives because they couldn't accept themselves because they felt like God don't love them because they're told that God don't love them or whatever. Because they try to change and they can't change.
Mm-hmm.
Some people feel like you can change this, or they think it's a choice. Some people, even to this day, still think it's a choice. But nobody wakes up one day and decides that, hey, I want to be this. Not at all.
Right.
I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody in their right mind that would choose a life of being ostracized and pushed to the side and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So here you are now. You are in the flight attendant industry. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what made you want to go into that? I know you've been doing that for what now, like 2 years or
It's been a year. It's been a year.
yeah?
And
Hmm.
what made me want to go into it was that the pandemic came and it was like the operations thing kind of got a little bit strenuous for me. I was working at Johns Hopkins at the time, and the pandemic was like we didn't have people. We had a problem with people coming into work. The operation kind of fell, and it was just too much stress. And I'm like, okay, I've been doing this for 18 years now. I need to do something else. And I've always loved being, watching these flight attendants when I would fly or travel somewhere. I would, admire them. And, I have some flight attendants in the family. So it's like, this,
Okay.
this is probably something that runs in the family because, you know,
Hmm.
um, family that works for American Airlines. So it was like my inner child that went into the cockpit at 5 years old because we traveled so much growing up.
Hmm.
I wanted to be a flight attendant since that time because the flight attendant was so nice to us. My memories of
Right.
5 years old and getting these little wings on my
Hmm.
you know, so it's
Yeah.
kind of gave me the zeal to kind of apply for this job and see if something I wanted to do. And so far, the whole year has been great.
That's something that you really been enjoying. That's
Yes.
what's up.
And
Um.
one more thing too, the pandemic came and it was like, okay, you've been inside for like what a whole maybe it was like a couple of months, but I felt myself like disliking people. But then after working as a flight attendant and changing my concept in my head and things that I was thinking, I started to like people again because I
Okay.
really did at that time also like I don't really like people because look at what happened with this pandemic. We have everybody to blame for this.
Hmm.
So after that it was like no, I like people. I
Right.
really do. Yeah.
And I'm going back to the relationship thing right
Right.
quick. I'm happy that you said the thing about um if you found someone You want to be monogamous or whatever. And I'm not knocking anybody who might want to be into poly or whatever. That's them. If that's what they want, if they
Mm.
want to be in a relationship with two or three people,
I know.
that's them.
I know.
Okay. That's not for everybody. But I'm also glad that you did mention the fact that you want monogamy and you want a family and all that, because that's not the image or whatever that a lot of people get. Um, you know, I get tired of the word lifestyle, right? I in conjunction to someone's sexual orientation,
Right.
because the meaning of lifestyle is a person or a group of people who live in a certain way, right?
Right.
Now, somebody having a sexual orientation or people sharing the same sexual orientation does not mean that they live in the same way. We don't all we don't all think alike. We don't all talk alike. We don't all behave and do the same things alike. We have different um, standards and so forth. So when people use the word lifestyle in conjunction with sexual orientation, I just don't like that, because it's like they're trying to put you in a box and say that we're all doing this and you're all doing that. And we're not all doing the same things. Not at all. We don't all do the same things, just like you can't say that all heterosexuals do everything the same or do the same things or
I think what
have the same habits.
right.
Mhm.
I think what the media and what is put out there about us and this lifestyle, social media is like it makes it hard because it's like they think and they classify you and they put you in a box like
Mhm.
this is what gay people are like
Mhm.
and this is what they do. But not
Mhm.
everybody not everybody likes to party, go to the bars and drink and go to all these pride events and stuff. I mean, at one time I did it, but now that's not me anymore. I won't go out
Right.
like,
And we don't all, not that I'm knocking anybody,
right,
we don't all like to be talked to the same way. We don't all say the same stuff. Like, I mean, with the whole thing with how some dudes who are transgender loving or whatever want to call each other certain words like girl and sis and bitch. I don't do that. Personally, I don't like that. And some get mad at me when I say, don't you ever say that to me. But I have to let them know. They want to be respected for how they want to be identified.
right,
But a lot of times, some of those same people, um, some of those same homosexuals who demand to be respected for how they want to be identified, they will turn around and try to disrespect you. You know what I
right.
mean? Um, that has to go all the way around, definitely. So as far as your book, where can people find it at? Are there any um, upcoming book signings, readings, and so forth?
I have a release party soon, but I do want to have a book signing too, so I'm gonna do both release party and a book signing at the same time. But
Hmm.
you can find it at Amazon, and Amazon has the Kindle and the paperback,
Okay.
and they also have the hard copy.
All right. Good,
So
good.
all on Amazon, and I'm sure you'll link it when we finish this live in the bio. But yeah, every just go to Amazon and they could put in a generation of trauma, and my name should pop up, Sirginho Williams, so they could
Okay.
find that. It's a good read.
All
It really is.
right. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It definitely is.
And I appreciate all the support, my friends and family and everybody. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, this has been a great conversation. Is there anything else you want to touch on that I may have missed or?
I think I forgot to mention flight attendant training. The first my journey in
Okay.
get these things, because flight attendant training is like boot camp. It's like
Hmm.
going to a police academy. So the last chapter does talk about flight attendant training, and it's only in the printed version because the Kindle doesn't have it.
Okay.
But it just about when I went to flight attendant training, meeting all new people, and it was kind of like being on Survivor Island, and also like the best of the best. So
Right.
like what my journey about what happened in flight attendant training and just the behaviors and people I encountered and things
Hmm.
that happen, and just not everybody's professional, but not every company it's really about you.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we know that when you find these
Well,
jobs, just think about,
yeah,
not for me, you know. So
you find
yeah,
you find unprofessional people in every profession.
every
Even as an actor, you got unprofessional actors that don't take it seriously, or they think it's all about them, and they'll show up when they want to, and come into rehearsals late and stuff like that, or give a halfway performance. So everybody deals with unprofessional people, no matter what profession it is, definitely. So I understand that totally. Um, yeah, but this has been a great conversation. This will be saved here on Instagram. It will also be on Facebook on the Facebook C Note page, as well as I will put it up on YouTube as well, on the YouTube C Note channel as well. So it'll be in those three locations: Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, which I do have the links to the Facebook page, the Facebook C Note page, and the YouTube C Note page on this, in my bio on this page, definitely. So you'll be able to find it there.
yeah.
And I'm, I really appreciate you
Thank you
coming
for having
through.
me. I appreciate it too. Yeah.
You're welcome. It's been a great conversation. We covered a lot of different things,
Yes, we did.
definitely.
Hour, yeah.
And I saw, I guess those were your friends hearting, sending hearts out. I saw a lot of hearts going up at different points
All
in the conversation.
right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for being.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Sirgino Williams. We had Sirgino Williams here, the new author, you know, interior designer, flight attendant. He's been a teacher, a whole lot. A great brother here. Thank you,
Thank you.
Sirgino.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye now, everybody. Love you. See y'all. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye now.